The Tale of Hasshakusama. Long ago, in a quiet countryside village in Japan, a strange rumor spread among the villagers. They spoke of a mysterious entity known as Hasshakusama. True to her name, Hasshakusama was said to be an unnaturally tall woman, standing at 8 shaku, about 240 centimeters. Those who claimed to have seen her described her as having long, flowing hair and wearing a white dress resembling a one-piece garment. Her face was indistinct and hazy, as if hidden behind a veil. But what terrified people the most was the eerie, low voice that accompanied her presence. A repeated po-po-po-po-po sound. The encounter one summer day, a young boy from the city visited the village to spend a few days at his grandparents' home. Life in the village was peaceful, and the boy enjoyed catching bugs, playing in the rice fields, and exploring the quiet countryside. One evening, as he wandered near a shrine at the edge of the village, he felt an odd sensation, as though someone was watching him. Turning around, he saw a tall white figure standing between the trees in the distance. The figure appeared to be staring at him, but her face was indistinct. Even so, an overwhelming fear gripped the boy. Then, from the direction of the figure, he heard the low, reverberating sound, po-po-po-po-po. He froze for a moment before running back home as fast as he could. When the boy told his grandparents what had happened, their faces turned pale. His grandfather, in a grave voice, said, "That was Hasshakusama. She has set her sights on you." The curse of Hasshakusama. According to his grandparents, Hasshakusama was a supernatural being that had haunted the village for generations. The next morning, the villagers prepared a car equipped with special protective charms to take the boy out of the village. The charms would temporarily ward off Hasshakusama's presence. As the car sped through the village, the boy could hear the ominous po-po-po-po-po sound outside, accompanied by the occasional tapping on the windows. The driver, grim-faced, did not stop or look back. Eventually, the car crossed the village boundary, and the eerie voice and tapping disappeared. The boy's grandparents explained that Hasshakusama's power was limited to the confines of the village. By leaving, the boy had escaped her curse, for now. Aftermath. The boy returned safely to the city and never saw Hasshakusama again. However, the memory of the encounter stayed with him. The chilling po-po-po-po-po sound often echoed in his mind, especially in the silence of night. Meanwhile, his grandparents thoroughly cleansed their home and replaced the talismans to protect themselves. Yet, even with such precautions, the fear of Hasshakusama never entirely faded. The villagers continued to speak of her in hushed tones, and her name remained a symbol of terror.
The story of Kisaragi Station. Late at night, after finishing her university assignments, Now boarded the last train home. The train was nearly empty, and everything seemed normal at first. However, as the train continued its journey, the view outside the windows grew darker, and familiar scenery faded away. Now glanced at the overhead display, showing the name of the next station. Now. This is strange. I've never seen this station name before. The train's announcement system crackled to life. Announcement. Next stop, Kisaragi Station. Kisaragi Station. Now, confused, pulled out her smartphone to search for Kisaragi Station, but nothing came up. Growing uneasy, she decided to get off when the train came to a halt. Stepping onto the platform, Now found herself at an unfamiliar, dimly lit station. The only sign of life was the station board, which read Kisaragi Station in bold letters. Beyond that, there was nothing but silence. Now? What is this place? Is this even real? Feeling nervous, Now called her friend. Hey, listen, I've ended up at some weird station called Kisaragi Station. Do you know it? Friend over the phone. Kisaragi Station? That doesn't sound right. Are you okay? You should call the police. Another friend joined the call, but also had no idea about such a station. Now's anxiety deepened as she realized she might be completely alone in this strange place. As Now wandered around the station, she noticed a faint light in the distance. Beneath the light stood an old man with an enigmatic air. Old man. So, you've wandered into this place. Now? Wandered? What do you mean? Where am I? This is the boundary between the human world and the other side. Those who step off here rarely find their way back. Now shuddered at his words, but desperately pressed for answers. Is there a way to return? There is one path. Walk along the tracks, going in the opposite direction. Do not look back, no matter what you hear. If you turn around, you'll never leave. Taking the old man's advice, Now began walking along the dark railway tracks. Her phone's flashlight was her only source of light in the oppressive darkness. Friend, Now, are you still there? Are you okay? I'm walking, but this place is terrifying. As she moved forward, strange sounds began to echo behind her. Soft laughter, footsteps, and whispers. Don't turn around. I can't look back, no matter what. The sounds grew louder and closer, almost as if something was right behind her. Trembling, Now kept her focus ahead and continued walking. After what felt like an eternity, Now saw a light ahead. It was the familiar glow of a station platform. Relief washed over her as she realized it was a station she recognized. Now, I made it back. I'm safe now. A train arrived and Now stepped aboard. Everything looked normal again. Familiar faces, familiar surroundings. She quickly called her friends to share the good news. I'm back! I think I escaped from Kisaragi Station. That's such a relief. But now... What? What was Kisaragi Station, really? Now looked at her phone and froze. There was no record of any calls made to her friends that night. Then, who was I talking to? Glancing at the train window, she caught a reflection of herself. For a moment, her face looked different, unfamiliar, as if it wasn't entirely her own.
In a quiet Japanese town nestled between the mountains, an eerie rumor spread among schoolchildren and villagers alike. It was the tale of a woman who wandered the streets late at night, her face partially covered by a surgical mask. Known as Kuchisake Onna, or the Slit-Mouthed Woman, her presence brought a chilling question. Am I beautiful? They said her face was horribly disfigured, her mouth slit from ear to ear, giving her a grotesque, permanent smile. If you answered her question wrong, or even right, there was no escape. One cool autumn evening, a high school student named Haruki walked home after cram school. The sun had set hours ago, and the streets were unusually empty. Haruki didn't mind the silence. He enjoyed the calm after a long day. As he passed an old alley, he heard the faint click of heels behind him. Curious, he turned his head and saw a woman standing under a flickering street lamp. She wore a beige trench coat, and her face was hidden behind a white surgical mask. Her long, jet-black hair framed her pale skin, and her eyes seemed to pierce through the dim light. Haruki's steps faltered. "Good evening," the woman said softly, her voice oddly sweet. "Good evening," Haruki stammered, unsure why her presence unnerved him so much. The woman tilted her head and took a step closer. "Am I beautiful?" Haruki felt a chill run down his spine. The question was strange, but he didn't want to be rude. "Yes, you're beautiful." The woman's eyes glimmered with satisfaction. Then she pulled off her mask. Her mouth stretched unnaturally wide, slit open from ear to ear. Blood-red scars framed her terrifying grin, and her sharp teeth gleamed in the faint light. "How about now?" she asked, her voice a mix of mockery and malice. Haruki froze, his heart pounding. He tried to scream, but the sound caught in his throat. "Answer me," she demanded, her tone more aggressive. Haruki's instinct screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. Desperately, he remembered the rumors. If he said yes, she would cut his face to match hers. If he said no, she would kill him on the spot. Thinking quickly, Haruki blurted, "You look average." For a moment, Kuchisake Onna appeared stunned. Her head tilted to the other side as if considering his answer. That moment of hesitation was all Haruki needed. He turned and sprinted down the street, not daring to look back. The sound of clicking heels followed him, growing louder and louder. "You can't escape me," she shouted, her voice echoing through the empty streets. Haruki darted into a nearby park, weaving between trees and bushes. He spotted an old shrine at the edge of the park and ran toward it, hoping for protection. He collapsed in front of the shrine, gasping for breath. The clicking heels suddenly stopped. The air grew eerily silent. Haruki glanced around but saw no sign of her. Relieved but shaken, he stayed there until dawn, when the first rays of sunlight chased away the night's terror. The next day, Haruki couldn't shake the memory of the encounter. He decided to research the legend of Kuchisake Onna. At the library, he found an old book detailing her origin. Long ago, the story went, she was a beautiful woman married to a jealous and cruel samurai. The samurai, convinced she had been unfaithful, attacked her in a fit of rage. He slit her mouth from ear to ear and shouted, "Who will call you beautiful now?" Her beauty destroyed. The woman's despair and hatred bound her spirit to the mortal world. She became a vengeful ghost, roaming the streets to seek validation or revenge from anyone she encountered. Haruki realized he had narrowly escaped, but he wasn't safe yet. The legend said Kuchisake Onna often returned to haunt her victims, and there was only one way to banish her for good: to offer her a gift that would distract her. A week later, Haruki was walking home again, clutching a bag of sweets. He had read that Kuchisake Onna had a weakness for candy, and he hoped it was true. As he passed the same alley, the sound of clicking heels returned. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "Am I beautiful?" her sweet voice asked. Haruki's hands trembled as he held out the bag of candy without looking back. "This is for you. Please take it." There was a long pause. Then the bag was snatched from his hand. "You're lucky," she said, her tone almost playful. "I'll let you go this time." The clicking heels faded into the distance, and Haruki finally dared to breathe. Haruki never saw Kuchisake Onna again, but he always carried sweets with him, just in case. The legend of the Slit-Mouthed Woman continued to haunt the town, and late at night, the sound of clicking heels could still be heard in the dark alleys. Some believed she would never leave, forever searching for her next victim, and others whispered that she was simply a reflection of human vanity and fear. For Haruki, the encounter became a chilling memory, one he would never forget. The end. Thank you for listening.